Obama is also trying to find a compromise on deficit reduction with congressional Republicans to head off $500 billion worth of tax hikes and budget cuts by the end of the year. The president's re-election is a chance to start over, says former Reagan White House Chief of Staff Ken Duberstein.
People are giving President Obama a second chance, perhaps to validate the promise he made in 2008, which was fundamentally to transform Washington in the way we work together or not work together.
It's also a chance for Republicans to make a fresh start, says Thomas Mann of the Brookings Institution.
It's not tenable for Republicans simply to stay in opposition for the whole second term of President Obama. And if they are seen as the obstacle to doing anything to solve our problems, they're writing their own death certificate.
But tough decisions on taxes and spending could also see the president demand concessions from his own party, says Duberstein.
A major part of leadership is occasionally saying no to your strongest allies and yes to some of your fiercest opponents. You got to bring people together.
President Obama will be officially sworn in for a second term on January 20th, with the public inauguration ceremony the following day. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
As it does every 4 years, Washington, D.C. is preparing for the spectacle of a presidential inauguration. But as VOA White House correspondent Ken Klein reports, President Obama's second inaugural will be smaller than the first.
A record crowd as large as 1.8 million people jammed into Washington's National Mall in January 2009 to see the historic swearing-in of the first African-American president.
Present the 44th President of these United States, Barack Obama.
Mr. Obama's public swearing-in this time will be on January 21st, one day after the start of his second term, because that will fall on a Sunday. This inauguration is likely to attract a smaller crowd, forecast at between 600,000 and 800,000 people. Yet Army Major General Errol Schwartz, commander of the 6,000 National Guard soldiers who will manage the crowds, says preparations have not changed.
Even though the crowd set is smaller, we are still looking at what are the possibilities that may occur within the smaller crowd.
Even if smaller, Washington's big event will still be just that. A joint congressional committee has spent $1.2 million on the platform at the Capitol, where Mr. Obama will take the oath, and on the ceremony itself.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
After the president is sworn in, gives his speech, and attends a congressional luncheon, the Presidential Inaugural Committee takes over. It manages the inaugural parade and related events. Construction on the reviewing stand began shortly before the November election. From here, the president will watch the parade. The stand will be finished just before the event, and demolition will begin the next day. The military's extensive involvement in Inauguration Day is coordinated by the Joint Task Force, which includes all the military's branches. Several thousand military personnel will take part in the ceremonies, including honor guards, color guards, bands, and horse units. Army Major General Michael Linnington leads those personnel. He says the participation of people in uniform symbolizes civilian control of the military and the peaceful transfer of power.
It is a symbol of our strength and our democracy, and I think it's an important event for us to do right in front of the eyes of the world.
To see that the military aspects are done right, the Joint Task Force has built a giant map of Washington. Officers are using the model of the nation's capital to work out logistics, such as how to move hundreds of thousands of people into and out of the city, and how to keep the president and everyone else safe in the process. Kent Klein, VOA News, the White House.
Well, it's time now for another short break. Still to come on In Focus.
VOA's Sunny Young tells us about two international superstars in the sunny side of sports. We'll be right back.
This is In Focus. 2012 was the first full year the United States lacked spacecraft to carry its astronauts to the International Space Station. But a decade-old company showed that it could do what the U.S. government presently cannot, fly a craft to the space station. VOA's Suzanne Presto reports on new progress and expected developments in U.S. space flight.
NASA's retired space shuttles delighted onlookers as they headed toward museums in 2012.
And launch.
And a new spacecraft blazed its own path toward the International Space Station. In May, the Dragon space capsule, launched atop a Falcon 9 rocket, became the first private craft to dock with the ISS. The rocket and capsule are developed, owned, and operated by the California-based company SpaceX. The docking signaled more than one breakthrough to SpaceX's chief, Elon Musk.
I'm really excited because this was a crucial step. And having achieved this step, it makes the things in the future and the ultimate path towards humanity becoming a multi-planet species much, much more likely.
NASA is also working with Orbital Sciences Corporation, which has developed the Antares rocket and Cygnus cargo craft. A demonstration flight to the space station is planned for 2013. NASA Administrator Charles Bolden.
We're handing off to the private sector our transportation to the International Space Station so that NASA can focus on what we do best, exploring even deeper into our solar system with missions to an asteroid and Mars on the horizon.
NASA is constructing the largest rocket ever built, called the Space Launch System, and the Orion capsule, a craft that can take astronauts 15 times further than the International Space Station. An unmanned trial mission is set for 2014. There was plenty of interest in NASA's next-generation capsule at a science festival in Washington.
I'm glad to see the whole space programs going on, because it seemed, to me at least, that all was kind of dead, but it's alive and well. It looks great.
NASA has contracts with 3 U.S. companies working on crew vehicles for manned missions to low Earth orbit. SpaceX says its Dragon capsule is designed to carry cargo or crew, and plans a manned test within 3 years. Boeing is working on its Crew Space Transportation 100 capsule, designed to carry 7 people and land on the ground. Sierra Nevada Corporation is developing a winged spacecraft called Dream Chaser. These partnerships with NASA spur innovation, says Public Affairs Professor Howard McCurdy of American University in Washington.
In the short run, SpaceX is ahead. They're more developed. In the long run, it's the same contest we played out in the 1950s, wings versus gumdrops. And nobody knows at this stage which is the superior technology.
Through its partnerships, NASA says it is on track to launch astronauts from the United States within 5 years. Suzanne Presto, VOA News, Washington.
In West Africa, the residents of Ghana are preparing for Christmas, but many shoppers are complaining that the high costs of commodities is affecting shopping season. It's been a busy week for traders at the Mokola market in Accra as people rush to buy last-minute gifts. The capital has experienced long traffic jams while traders have taken over the streets to sell their wares. Ghana's annual consumer price inflation rose slightly to 9.3% in November from 9.2% in October. According to the country's statistical office, many shoppers have traveled to Accra from other towns where they say items are sold cheaper.